Hi, this is Silverpaw Reads, and we're bringing you another chapter of Murder on Green Hill Island. Remember, I do always leave a link in the description, so if you guys want to read along with the story with me, you can absolutely do that, or if you want to read it yourself, you can go ahead and do that, or maybe even read ahead. Also, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe share the video around with some friends that might be into some cool fan fiction. Anyways, let's get started with Chapter 2. And welcome back to Golden Stories with me, Gold the Tenric, the only show in which we take a look at the seedier stories that plague our citizens. Now, Sonic, you said that Blaze had just discovered your friend's dead body. Gold shifted her gaze from the camera to look back at Sonic. Although the Sapphire Hedgehog felt slightly bad for talking about his friend's sufferings, he felt like he had to share his story with the world. That is correct, Gold. All of us ran downstairs as soon as we heard her scream, and nothing on the face of this planet could have prepared us for the sight, Sonic told the Tenric. And did you think it was one of your friends from the start, or did that thought only occur to you after you discovered who the killer was? Well, we were the only people on the island at the time, but if I had known that... Whoa, let's not get overzealous here, Gold stepped in, interrupting Sonic mid-sentence. Let's not reveal who the killer is to our viewers just yet. Please continue your account, Gold concluded, focusing more on the ratings of her show than the turmoil of her guest. The longer she could prolong Sonic's story, the higher her ratings would be. After the survivors returned from the island, word of the Freedom Fighter fiasco shot through Mobius faster than any other news. Sonic and his fighters, the animals that used to be heralded as heroes until Eggman had finally been defeated and the citizens moved on, used to be known by all. When people heard about what happened on that island, they instantly wanted to know more. They wanted to know which of their previous heroes who defended them from peril could turn to murder so easily. Gold knew this, and to get the promotion that she wanted, she would need to increase the ratings. Sonic's story was her ticket to the big leagues, and she planned to milk it for all it was worth. Okay, Sonic complied, after with her instructions, facing to the camera again. After we all assembled in the room, things began to get a bit chaotic. Do you really think one of us did this? Tails asked. That seems highly unlikely, Silver added. I don't think anybody here could do something so horrible, Amy chimed in as well. If one of us didn't do it, that would mean... Sonic trailed off, his eyes widening when the thoughts entered his brain. There is somebody else on the island with us, Knuckles bellowed at the top of his voice, enticing gasps out of the rest of his friends. The thought of Cream's dead body dissipated from their minds, as for the need for self-preservation took hold of them. Together, they all turned and sprinted out of the mansion, following the small, overgrown path back the way they had came. They hastened through the main field of the island, passing the campfire pit and small wooden stage that had been constructed back when the island used to be Green Hill Summer Camp until it was bought by the millionaire Maximilian. The small dock on the edge of the island slowly grew in size as they neared it, but to their dismay, the gigantic cruise ship that had escorted them to the island was nowhere to be seen. Sonic and Shadow, who had ran ahead of the others to scout out the location in case the possible intruder was awaiting them, skidded to a halt, sparks flying from underneath their shoes. There, lying on the moldy planks of the wood that served as the floor of the dock, lay two individuals. Scourge! Fiona! Sonic gasped in shock. So it was you two, Shadow accused, running over to grab both of their arms and lift them up. This harsh action aroused them both from their state of unconsciousness. Scourge babbled slightly, his eyes fluttering as he tried to understand the situation. When his eyes locked with the angry crimson ones that were staring at him, he quickly jumped back. What the fuck are you guys doing here? He pointed at them. Fiona was still quite groggy from their late night of drinking, held her head in an attempt to satiate the throbbing pain that she felt. Whoa, what happened? She asked. The world was spinning. Why are you guys on the island? Silver asked, placing his hands on his knees to catch his breath as the rest of the gang finally caught up to the two speedy hedgehogs. Fiona? Amy yelled out in surprise, narrowing her eyes at the fox that had caused her so much pain in the past. I should have known it was you. What do you want, skank? Still sore that Sonic won't stick it in you? Fiona taunted, causing Amy to visibly shake with anger. She rolled up her sleeves and marched over to the vixen who smirked at her. Girls, come on, let's just all calm down for a second. Blaze and Sally cooed in unison, rushing over to the stand between the two girls, trying to defuse the situation before it got out of hand. I can't help it if Sonic fucked me and not her. Fiona stuck out her tongue at the pink hedgehog, her eyes shimmering with mischief. He what? Amy yelled, throwing Blaze out of the way, causing her to stumble off the pier and fall with a mighty splash into the water. Blaze! Tails called in worry, pulling off his shirt and diving off the pier into the water to go help the cat, who had an irrational fear of water. Girl, stop this now, Sonic snapped angrily, silencing the two females. This isn't the time for this shit. Cream was just killed and you're fighting about this trivial stuff? Sonic scolded them. Amy shrank down, applying her puppy dog eyes to try to soothe the blue speedster, whilst Fiona just scoffed in defiance. Wait, what do you mean Cream was killed? Scourge asked, slightly taken aback. Don't act like you didn't know, Knuckles called angrily. We know you two killed her. Fuck off, we didn't do anything, Scourge snapped back. Then how do you explain the sunken boat behind you? Mina called out in accusation. If you give me a chance to fucking explain, then I can, Scourge growled in response. Fi and I snuck into the boat because we're gonna rob the little rabbit blind. How could you do that to her? Silver blurted out, interrupting the green hedgehog who just scowled at him before continuing his story. We fell asleep after raiding the ship's liquor cabinet, but then suddenly the ship began to sink in the middle of the night. One of you fuckers must have sabotaged the bloody ship to kill us too. You're lucky we managed to make it off the ship just before it sank. Probably the same person who killed Cream tried to kill us, Fiona sighed, enjoying the turmoil on their faces. And why should we believe you? Shadow replied coldly, not believing a word of their story. Scourge had had enough. He grabbed Fiona's wrist and pushed past the ebony hedgehog, heading into the forest. I don't give a shit what you think. We didn't kill anybody, and since one of you lot are a bloodthirsty killer, we're not going to stick around to find out. Later, Scourge called, not bothering to look back at the remaining members as the two disappeared into the shadowy confines of the thick forest that covered most of the island. Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, Silver, Sally, Rouge, Mina, and Amy all watched the two fade away into the forest as Tails and Blaze emerged from the water, collapsing on the golden sand that ran around the perimeter of the island with a mighty sigh. What the fuck, Amy? Blaze shivered, trying to catch her breath from her little freak out that she had experienced from the water. She bent over to cough up some excess seawater that had made its way into her lungs before she tried to speak again. Guys, everybody just needs to calm down for a second, Mina spoke, trying to take the charge suddenly. Maybe they lied, maybe they didn't, but the important thing is that we need to find a place to regroup. Good idea, Amy sighed in defeat. We passed a little camp area a few paces back. Maybe we should set up a small camp there and figure out what to do, Tails suggested. He was met with nods from the surrounding group. You're all my friends, and I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. I don't think any one of us is capable of murder, especially not the murder of an innocent little Cream. I think there might be somebody else on the island, and if that's the case, we need to stick together now more than ever, Sonic stated, a grave connotation paired with his words. Together, the 10 animals set off back to the campsite, all of their heads on a swivel as they remained ever diligent for any sign of the possible killer that was lurking just beyond their view. So, Mr. Hedgehog, you told them all that you didn't think any of them could be killers? Gold confirmed with Sonic, who nodded in reply. At least, I thought none of them could be, he sighed solemnly. So, when did you all decide that there was no killer on the island and that it was in fact one of your own that had murdered Cream? Gold asked, turning her attention from the camera back to the hedgehog. Well, not very long, Sonic continued. Although the sun was still rising, indicating that it hadn't even passed midday by that point, the group began to collect firewood and leaves, piling them into the center circle that had been surrounded in a circle of rocks. The last thing any of them wanted to do was look around in the dense forest for wood after the moon had risen. Although the large mansion seemed a bit more favorable location to stay, the looming grimness of Cream's dead body still haunted them all, and that was the place where most of them assumed the killer had made their base of operations. The area in which they chose to set up a little base camp was a quaint field surrounded on all sides by a dense forest with the winding path to the mansion to the east. The path circled around the circumference of the area, acting as a sort of perimeter to guard from evil spirits screaming from the forest, and led back out to the west towards the wooden dock. Small rounded logs were stuck in the ground, indicating the remains of once dominant trees that had previously loomed over the area, casing their giant shadows across the swaying grass. Small logs had been placed on top of them, bridging the gap which served as a nice bench for the animals to sit on and think. Guys, I feel kinda bad for them, Sally piped up after the group had fully converged in the area and all gathered around the central fire pit. I know their intentions for coming to the island were ill, but we can't just have them fend for themselves with a lunatic on the loose. I'm with Sally. We should send some people out to go look for them, Mina chimed in. That sounds like a good idea. Rouge, can you go with them just in case? Power in numbers, Sonic asked, casting his glaze over to the bat who seemed to be searching her nails for dust and dirt. Fine, whatever, but I don't do whining. She sighed as she stretched out her arms before walking over to the two girls. Great, and while you three do that, I'll do a quick run around the island to check for any sign of a campsite or any sign somebody else is on the island. Sonic smirked, about to sprint off when Mina grabbed his arm in alarm. Why would you do that? She asked quickly before realizing that all eyes were on her. I mean, didn't you just say he would be there? At least let me go with you, because, you know, power in numbers and all that. Thanks for the concert, Mins, but I'll be fine. I won't stop running and he won't be able to catch me if I see him. Sonic smirked before sprinting off into the forest. After Sonic had left, Sally and Rouge began venturing into the forest. Sally glanced over her shoulder, ushering Mina to follow with the tilt of her head in the direction that they were heading. Mina crashed through the bushes away from the campsite to catch up with the two. Yeah, I'll catch up in a second. I just need to quickly go take a piss, Mina called as she hurried into the forest near the girls. Rouge breathed heavily in annoyance before leaning up against the tree. We'll wait for you, honey, but be quick, she called. After a few moments passed, Rouge began to get a little bored and looked over to Sally, who was leaning against a tree of her own, a frown present on her face. A wicked thought passed through Rouge's head as she smirked and called to Sally. So, you and Sonic, what's going on there? What? Why do you think there's something going on between us? Sally mumbled, a small tinge of crimson crossing her face. Let's call it a bat's intuition. So, how good is he in bed? She laughed. At this point, Sally's face had lit up like a Christmas light. Rouge, Sonic is just my friend. We don't have that kind of relationship, Sally said, quite flustered. So, you do admit you have a relationship then? She winked, chuckling to herself. Sally opened her mouth to interject before Mina stepped out from behind a tree, startling the two of them. All done, she beamed. Let's go. Mina, that wasn't cool. You scared me half to death, Sally complained, her hand resting on her chest, trying to sedate the rapid beating of her heart after the jump scare that Mina had given her. Yeah, don't sneak up on a girl like that, Rouge threatened before the trio set off in search of the nasty green hedgehog and the vixen of a fox. Tails and Amy sat next to each other, using sticks they had found to play a multitude of games of tic-tac-toe in the dirt to erase their minds. Tails, after every move, would sneakily glance over to the violet cat and smile at her, getting a happy grin in return from her. Silver scoffed to himself, annoyed by the stolen stares that the two were sharing. It disgusted him. I've been in love with that cat for years, and that stupid fox thinks he can just swoop in and steal her from me? He might be a genius, but he really needs to work on his social skills, Silver thought. His arms folded sternly across his body. Shadow raised an eye, his gaze darting between Silver, Blaze, and Tails before he let out a long, low, exasperated sigh. That's it, I'm officially sick of this, he sighed. We need food, and since all the food is in the mansion, then somebody has to go get it. Good idea! Knuckles cracked his knuckles, rotating his shoulders in a circular motion as he got up from laying down position on one of the logs. I'll come with you in case that son of the bitch who killed Cream is lurking around in there. That gives me a good idea, Tails smiled, looking up at the two girls for getting ready to head out. I saw a small little surveillance building adjacent to the mansion where we entered. Maybe I can reroute some of the wires and get a feed from the security cameras situated around the house. I'll go with you, Amy chimed in, extending out her arm, waiting for Tails to help her up off the seat. Then we could find out who killed Cream. That's brilliant, Tails. Blaze smiled, causing Tails to cough in modesty and rub the back of his head. Yeah, whatever, he's smart, Silver added sarcastically, rolling his eyes as he stood up, brushing off the dust from his pants. I'll go help the guys get some food. No, Amy stated plainly. Why not? Knuckles asked. What about Blaze? We can't leave her alone in case the killer comes looking for us. We need to at least stay in pairs, she added. Sonic will be back soon, Silver snorted. Silver, this is no time to be stubborn. Shadow spoke with an annoyed tone. If Sonic comes back, then you can come help us, but for now we need to stay in at least pairs. Tails is smart, so he needs to go do his thing and Amy can help him. And no offense, but Knuckles and I are stronger than you, so we should go to the mansion. You want to prove it? Silver asked, rolling up his sleeve. Shadow stepped forward, his eyes daring Silver to take a swing. Guys, this isn't the time to be doing this. Tails stepped between the two, mustering up some courage. He was running on adrenaline and fear at this point, and knew that turning on each other was the last thing they should do. Of course you'd step in, Silver scoffed. Tails, Shadow, just go do your thing. Thanks for the help. I'll deal with Silver. Blaze spoke to the two, shooing them off with her hands. The patient feline waited until the four of them had walked far enough down the path and were clearly out of earshot before she let Silver the Hedgehog have a piece of her mind. "What the hell's your problem?" she screamed, raising her hands in the air for emphasis. Her patience had officially run its course, and the traumatic event of discovering Crean's body was enough to already put her on more edge than normal. "My problem? What's your problem? You're supposed to be my best friend, but all you do is take Tails' side all the time." Silver retorted angrily. "What do you mean all the time? Just then was the only time I took his side all trip," Blaze yelled. "I don't mean just now. All the time. Whenever there's a discussion or argument, you always agree with him. It's so damn frustrating." "Just because I agree with him doesn't mean you and I still aren't best friends," Blaze tried to reassure him, but the anger in her voice wasn't doing the job of calming the riled-up hedgehog like she wanted it to. "Well, you're always doing googly eyes over Tails, and it's not fair. You're supposed to love me," Silver bellowed before his eyes grew wide and his hand shot over his mouth in an attempt to shove his words back in. He instantly regretted saying it. His heart seemed to shrivel up when he saw the look of surprise and horror on his best friend's face as she tried to process what he had just said to her. "Silver, how, Blaze began but was cut off by him. "Just never mind. Forget I said everything. I'm gonna go take a nap." He waved her question away as he walked over to the other side of the camp area and lay down on his side, facing into the forest. He picked at the grass angrily, silently cursing his stupidity as Blaze just sat there watching him, not knowing whether to say anything or not. Eventually, all the trauma, stress, and confusing emotions between him and Tails took their toll. She eventually decided that talking to Silver while he was like this was just wasting energy and laid her back against the stump, letting her head fall down onto her chest. Her eyelids grew heavy as sleep began to take hold of her. "Sorry, Sonic, I'm going to have to stop you there for a moment," Gold chimed in, smiling her angelic smile at the hedgehog whilst he was mid-sentence. "Yeah, what is it, Gold?" Sonic asked, returning the smile. "We just need to take a quick moment for a commercial break," Gold giggled, turning to face the camera. "Do you want to hear how Sonic and Friends' impressive tale of survival concludes? Well, don't touch that dial. We'll be back after the break." Gold spoke professionally, addressing the viewers. Alright, that's it for Chapter 2. Be sure to tune in next time for Chapter 3. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys all have a great day.